I think it should be addressed, and I think it's something that we are going to go after. I'm hearing rumblings. I haven't heard anything confirmed yet, but I imagine it's something that we're probably going to try to get into law this year, hopefully within the next couple months, and negotiate that. I'm a supporter of that. I think we need to move Pennsylvania into this generation and make it easier and more convenient for the people of Pennsylvania.
It's overwhelmingly supported by the people. Not to bring this up again would be a tragedy. I think it has to come up for the budget reasons. Even the governor, if he was against it before, would have to see that there's $1 billion on the table right there that we need the revenue. So I think it will come up again. I think we'll get some movement on it. It may not come up the same way it came up last time, but the people want this. It's a no-brainer. We're one of the last 2 states that the government is involved in selling this. And it's such a conflict of interest that the government is relying on revenues from something we're trying to regulate. It doesn't make sense. We shouldn't be in the business of selling liquor. Never should have been in the business of selling it. We should regulate it, but not be in the business of selling it. People want it to be available in stores and so forth. So I think it's going to come up again, and I think it'll pass.
This doesn't seem to me to be a partisan issue. I feel the gauge that it's a lot of people support this on both sides of both political affiliations.
Yeah, I would tell you that that's not, and I'm sorry, I don't mean on the streets. I mean in Harrisburg. My feeling is that it has been a mostly partisan issue. That's definitely been my experience in discussions of the bill. I do support a modernization plan off the top. We were, to be honest, that would have passed, in my opinion, pretty easily. It would have brought in anywhere from, say, $60 to $85 million on top of what is happening now if we'd just done it last year.
Yeah, I think there's certainly been discussion, and there will continue to be discussion. I've always been in favor of modernization rather than privatization. I think where there are ways that we can deliver greater convenience and choice to customers without losing the revenue that the current system brings in. So I'm heartened and certainly always hopeful that we'll work in a bipartisan way to preserve the revenue coming in. But at the same time, I think we do need to take a look at providing greater convenience and providing greater choice to consumers who are buying alcohol.
I heard from Dan Miller that this is a highly partisan issue in Harrisburg, and you can see it.
Isn't it odd that it would be when we're dealing with the freedom of every Pennsylvanian to purchase something that they can purchase in the free market anywhere else in the country? But in Pennsylvania, we have the state store system that would make the Soviet-era monopolies proud. Now, if I had my way, it would simply be that much like we have liquor licenses for restaurants and bars, if someone met certain criteria, that if you meet those criteria, you get your license, period. I don't think that any artificial constraint by the state should be introduced, which would cause licenses to be like taxi medallions and have some inherent value that's created strictly by the state creating a shortage. But rather, if you're ready to play by the rules, think about driver's licenses. We don't say there's a limit on how many people can have a driver's license. We might think our roads are crowded in certain areas, but we never think the solution is that if you apply for a driver's license, you have to go buy it in an auction somewhere. The tragedy for me is that it's characterized as a partisan question. And I think it's a shame that only Republicans seem to understand that getting the state out of the liquor business is a good thing. Because I'm sure if you were to poll people at home, it doesn't matter if they're registered Republican or registered Democrat, overwhelmingly people believe the state should not be in the business of peddling liquor.
I am generally supportive of medical marijuana. One of the issues that I've had with it is to make sure that when a system is put in place for medical marijuana, there's a system there that's not susceptible to theft or to or fraud, where people are stealing it or taking it, or stealing out of a pharmacy or stealing it out of a doctor's office or anything like that. I just want to make sure that there are proper safeguards in place for that. But if it's something that can help people that are dealing with medical issues, then who am I to tell them, no, you can't have this? Like I honestly think that it's something that can be beneficial if used properly. And I'm not a physician, so I can't speak to it medically, but if a physician feels like it's something that can help and make a difference in somebody's recovery, then I'm supportive of that. But I'm still listening to both sides. but that's just my personal feelings on that. If it came to a floor vote for full, I've been reading and doing a lot of research on this issue. I just saw recently a quote from I believe it was the governor in Colorado, that he basically thought it was a bad idea after the fact. I'm generally not supportive of it. I would be open to decriminalizing it, just to kind of help some of the families and just. The issue is when you get arrested for something like that and you go into prison, you're not being taught, or you're not being, I don't want to say rehabbed, but you're probably still going to use it when you get out of prison. So it doesn't help anything but create a drain on the system, or we could use those resources for something else.
I see some merits in the medicinal part. I guess the real worry is to see the final wording of the bill to make sure that there's no recreational use or possible recreational use in there, because most people are still against that. So I don't know. I haven't seen the actual verbiage of the bill yet, so when we see things, we will take a look at it. But I understand the concern that people have about being able to satisfy medical needs of people through this. But we are getting a lot of pushback from the medical community, who isn't convinced that there is really the kind of help that people said they are. They think it's a placebo effect. So again, I have to see all the evidence on this. I haven't come to a conclusion yet, but I will be looking at it since it's of interest to people.
Listen, I will tell you that I'm interested in the bill. I have tried to keep on top of it there. Partially just because it's an offshoot of my concern with prescription pills. Obviously what we've seen is a massive increase over the last 10 years, roughly, of prescription pill prescribing, and we've seen the ramifications of some of that. Obviously not everything. I'm not trying to paint everything with a big brush, but we know that there are medical studies that are saying medical marijuana can be helpful in a way that doesn't have some of the dangerous side effects that prescription pills can have. And I lean, while I haven't made a final decision, I lean towards passing it. I want to see what's in it, the final version when it comes across. The big thing is I want to give doctors more tools. So I don't want to tell somebody they have to take it or anything like that, but I want to give tools for the doctors to be able to help people. Medical marijuana first, let's go with that. I understand the need in the medical scenarios for it, but not full legalization.
Yeah, I'm very encouraged that it'll happen. And as you said, I voted for it last session. It passed the state Senate with a tremendous bipartisan vote of 43-7. So a large number of Democrats and Republicans supporting it. I think it's a thoughtful, common sense approach to alleviating serious medical conditions, particularly among children. And one of the things that really you encouraged me to vote yes is going to the hearing that we had in the Senate. And I watched it on television and being really struck by the passion and the forcefulness of mothers and fathers who testified on behalf of their 7, 8, or 9-year-old son or daughter, who in many cases, these kids were suffering epileptic seizures at the rate of 100 seizures or more than 100 seizures a week. And the only thing that these parents were able to utilize, and the children were able to utilize, that alleviated and eliminated in many cases those seizures was medical marijuana. And I think it needs to be certainly well regulated and limited in its scope and done in a thoughtful manner. But I think when you look at these kids who are suffering from these serious medical ailments, and the parents tell you the one thing that we know worked was a prescription from the physician for medical marijuana, it's a very powerful message.
I know Dalen Leach would like to see it take one step further with full legalization. He's libertarian in that front, but do you think something like that will come out of the legislature soon, or even that would approach the floor?
No, I think that's something that would not be considered in this context. I think that the most support, and certainly my support, is around a limited in scope medical marijuana that's just utilized via prescription by physicians, for example, because that's the thing that really struck me. This is another method that physicians can prescribe something to alleviate these conditions that, as I said, particularly children are suffering from. So the medical context for me is really the key part of it.
I think that's an easy decision at this point in time, and I think the decision is yes. I trust doctors, and if doctors believe that this is the appropriate medicine, so be it.
But what if Dale and Leach added amendments to have this be a full legalization, allowing any type of use that anyone wanted?
Well, it's really a different conversation. And right now we have a couple other states that have ventured in that direction, and they seem to be grand experiments, and we'll see. I think let's see what happens. It's really not a question that's going to come up before the legislature anytime soon. The real trouble with our pension math right now is continuing the defined benefit plan for everyone who's already employed. That someone who was hired yesterday under the Supreme Court decision for the next 40 years could continue to accumulate benefits under a defined benefit plan. So that any changes that are made now that only affect new employees really don't change the liability equation until you're looking 30 and 40 years into the future. I believe what we need to do is have a constitutional amendment to make it crystal clear to our Supreme Court that any changes to pensions in Pennsylvania, so long as they coincide with the federal standards, are in bounds, and then guide our decisions based upon the Federal Employment Retirement Income Security Act, ERISA.
One of the things that I'm trying to work on in Harrisburg to address is pension reform. It has been at the forefront of some of the issues. I'm sure it will be when the budget comes out, or the Governor Wolf's budget comes out in March. I'm doing everything in my power to ensure that everybody who is guaranteed benefits keeps those benefits, and that we can try to limit the unfunded liabilities that we have. Now, there's no one-step solve-all. This is going to be a systematic approach where it's going to be step by step. I'm looking forward to working with some of the people who have already introduced legislation over the last year or two to see if I can input some ideas to that to help make the process better. One of the things that, while doing research, I found out that a lot of states, when they changed their pension program, exempted state police. And in Pennsylvania, state police have a mandatory retirement age of 60. So there's a shortfall there between when they can collect their pension. There's like a gap there. And one of the things I want to make sure is that the state police are protected against that, to make sure that, if we're going to change the pension system, it's got to work for them too.
Yeah, we definitely have to face this. I mean, I've been in the lead of this for almost 3 years now. So long before it became a popular item, I was calling the alarm on public pensions. We're $50 billion underfunded. We cannot be sustained. It will wreck the pension system for those that are already on pensions eventually, and we don't want to do that. We have to take action to stop the bleeding right now. I'm for the most, let's say, intrusive form of, or I don't say intrusive, that's a bad word. Let's say the most comprehensive form of pension reform, but I don't think that'll pass. So I think the one that's out there is the one that only applies to new employees, which will put them in a defined contribution plan, and it will help stop the bleeding in the out years. It doesn't help the current problem so much, but it does help in the out years. So then we can work our way backwards and find out how we're going to fund this unfunded liability and deal with the current pension problems that are causing property taxes to skyrocket. They're gonna bankrupt our state. Yeah, I would like to see us go to a 401k style system for all employees. Of course, I've declined the state pension, so I'm not in the pension system at all because I just think it's wrong for legislators. It's unconstitutional, and I don't think I need to contribute to this problem here. But I think we need to go to that 401k style system, which I would then be able to contribute to, and like everybody else does in the private sector. And like my 401k in the private sector, I have a 401k in the private sector, and we should all be contributing to that, just like everyone else does. It shouldn't be funded by the taxpayers.
Listen, the pension bills that have all been discussed thus far would not have changed a dime for our current crisis and our crisis for several years. The amount of money that needs to be paid into the system. So no bill changes the reality of what we're dealing with from this point, from today to the next 5, 6, 7 years out. So right now, there is no silver bullet scenario that's there. I do expect it to be part of the discussion. I know that people that call it cost driver. Clearly, the bipartisan plan that was done in 2010 set this all in motion. And keep in mind, I always tell everybody it's a problem, clearly. School districts are paying more, the state is paying more, and that's true. But the teachers have always paid. They've never been the problem with paying the bill. They've always paid their bill. The school districts have paid what the state government has told them. And the only part of the equation that has really failed to meet its obligations has generally been the state.